Lyle Shanahan. The only last name I'm throwing out there because I'm guessing it's not real. I could be wrong. The Shanahan family might absolutely exist. And why not name your child Lyle after Lyle Lovett, of course. But this one I paraphrased as well. So paraphrased it to removing Deebo's YAC yardage. Are Jimmy's numbers good? So the comparison is valid. The question is valid. The air yards are not good, but this is the way I broke it down. I compared the two top receivers in the league. I wanted to look at Cooper Kupp, who we just played, who had a great game, right? 110 receiving yards in that game, even though didn't get the touchdowns that they needed, and Deebo. And the numbers get interesting to me. To me, the question is it scheme or is it limitations that put Jimmy where he is? Is it Kyle's offensive scheme or is it Jimmy's physical limitations that put those air yards below? So let's dig into the numbers. Cooper Kupp average depth of target is 8.6 yards, and his average yards per reception 13.4. 8.6 and 13.4. That's about 5 yards of YAC on every reception. Deebo's average depth of target, 8.4. About the same as Cooper Kupp's 8.6. You want to know what his yards per reception is? 18.1. The man's getting nearly 10 yards, nearly a first down of YAC yards on every reception. That's absurd, people. Absurd. For good measure, I threw in Chris Godwin, another very elite wide receiver who has a pretty damn good quarterback throwing him the ball. He also sits at 8.5 average yards of depth per reception and 12.6 yards per reception. So even lower than Cooper Kupp, right? He's only getting 4 yards of YAC per reception. Deebo, 10. So it's really not that Deebo is getting the ball shallow when compared to similar stars. It's just that he is doing so much more with every single reception that he has. I mean, not every single one, but you get the hyperbole. To me, it's much more of a reflection on how special Deebo is. The credit belongs for Deebo, not criticism as much for Jimmy. To me, Jimmy's issues have more to do with turnovers, holding the ball too long, taking unneeded sacks by doing that, not throwing the ball away, missing reads, and fumbles. Although even in his fumbles this year, through the halfway point, he has 5, but that mirrors his 2019 output of 10. So if he goes another 5 fumbles for the second half of the season, he'll be at the same as 2019. So I started digging in. I wanted to compare the rest of Jimmy's stats from this year to 2019. His yards per attempt sit at 8.3 this year, which is pretty close to his 8.4 average in 2019. This year, a 66% completion percentage, down from just 69% completion percentage in 2019. So not that far off. So far, through 8 starts, Jimmy has 1,936 passing yards. Now remember, he did not play in the Arizona game. So bump this out over a 16-game season, 8 starts, multiply that by 2, 3,872 yards. That's not far off of his 2019 pace of 3,978. And he missed half a game. So really 7.5 games. So it would be even closer. I thought for sure that his touchdown to interception ratio would be different. Worse. It's not. 27-13 was his touchdown to interception ratio in 2019, compared to 10-5. Now he's throwing fewer touchdowns, but the ratio is the same. A 2-to-1 ratio in touchdown to picks. After the Week 2 win, Joe Staley said something that I believe to be the most relevant. So I'm going to read you this Joe Staley quote. He didn't have the huge plays down the field, and that's what I think everybody that loves fantasy football and the stats and all these stat patterns and stuff want to like. Well, he's not throwing the ball 40 yards downfield, Staley said Monday on KNBR. Well, that's not what he's asked to do in this offense. It never has been. If you look at Kyle Shanahan's offense, it's never really been that. It's been about controlling the clock, moving the ball downfield, and doing what it takes to win. So it is a bit unfair to criticize Jimmy G when he's doing what's asked of him within the scheme and doing it pretty damn well for the most part of the season, in particular the last 3 games. It's fair to wonder how much of that scheme is based around Jimmy's limitations as a quarterback. That's possible, that the offense is limited because of Jimmy. But it's the coach's job to maximize a player's skill set. So to me, this becomes a bit of the chicken or egg type argument. Which came first, Jimmy's limitations or Kyle's scheme that relies on a lot of YAC yardage? It seems to me that Kyle drafts players that are positionless. So I lean toward the idea that Kyle prefers the offense with favorable matchups and a YAC focus, system-based. The drafting of Trey would indicate that he wants to add to that he sees the limitations of Jimmy. But it's kind of wild to me how close Jimmy's season is to what he did in 2019. It's a good illustration that perhaps the biggest drop-off to this point may have been with the defense and the run game, at least until the 49ers found Elijah Mitchell.